Have you ever felt like you were navigating life on hard mode without knowing why? Like everyone else had the instruction manual and you didn't, but somehow you missed out. If that sounds familiar, you might be on a journey that many of us have taken, discovering that you are autistic later in life. Today, we're diving into why getting a late autism diagnosis or self identifying as autistic later in life matters, how it can completely reshape the way you see yourself, your relationships, and your future. And most importantly, why it's never too late to embrace who you truly are. So let's get started. Hey, Define Yourselfer. I am the Confident Autistic. I'm an autistic adult, late diagnosed. Here on my YouTube channel, I share videos that will help you understand autism and build the confidence necessary to live life confidently autistic. Now, if this resonates with you, please subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of new videos and when I go live for my weekly Q&A live stream. Now, before many of us get diagnosed or start self-identifying as autistic, we often go through life feeling, well, different. Maybe we struggled socially, felt exhausted from masking, or burnt out trying to keep up with a world that didn't seem to work the way that our brains work. And maybe you even ask yourself, but I made it this far without knowing. Does a late diagnosis or, self-identifying as autistic really change anything? Well, the answer is yes, it does. Because a diagnosis or, self-identifying as autistic isn't just a label. It's a validation. It's understanding why certain things have and always been challenging and why other things bring you joy in ways that might not make sense to neurotypical people. For so many, finally, having a name for our experiences brings immense relief. It's like finding the missing piece of a puzzle you didn't even realize was incomplete. Now, how does a late diagnosis or self identifying as autistic change your self perception? That's an excellent question. Once you get the diagnosis or start to self identify as autistic, you start to see yourself differently. It's no longer what's wrong with me perspective that you have, but it's, oh, that makes so much sense now. Suddenly, those moments of sensory overload, needing to stick to routines, or feeling drained in social settings aren't personal failures. They are part of how your brain works. But let's be real, it's also an emotional roller coaster when we go through the process of late diagnosis or going towards self identifying. Either way, it's an emotional roller coaster. There's, of course, relief, but there can also be grief for the years spent not knowing that you were autistic, for the struggles that feel impossible without support. And then there's self acceptance, that the part where your confidence starts to grow. Now, I know when I went through my own journey of first suspecting I was autistic and then moving to self identifying and receiving confirmation of my suspicions I was on the spectrum by a late diagnosis, I went through a lot of grieving. And I'll be honest, I went through some anger too. That why didn't someone notice this many years ago when I was a child? And for me, at my age, and when I was a child in the 70s, I have to rationalize and understand. It's not just rationalizing, it's understanding because it's a fact. We know more about autism than we did 50 years ago when I was a child. So basically, if what we knew today was available in the 1970s, I would have been identified as autistic then. And I also like to believe that if people knew that I was autistic as a child, I would have had more compassion from others and understanding and support. See, I have a great nephew. He is 6 years old, and he's on the spectrum. He's going to be turning 7 this next month in April, and he's been diagnosed several years ago, and I am so happy for him. He's going to get the support that I could have used when I was his age, and I'm so excited to see what he's going to be able to achieve in life because of the support he's getting today. Now, when we are going through late diagnosis or received it, or we started self identifying as autistic, there's an impact on the relationships we currently have in our lives. Now, late diagnosis or self identifying can make you rethink a lot of things, especially your relationships. Maybe you look back and realize past misunderstandings weren't just social awkwardness, but genuine differences in communication because many autistics do communicate differently than our autistic peers, and our autistic peers are people who are not autistic. Now, during this time of revelation, you might find yourself reassessing friendships, family dynamics, and even romantic relationships. The great thing, you now have the knowledge to communicate your needs, set boundaries, and decide who truly respects you for who you are. And I went through this a little bit myself. I don't have a lot of friends because I'm a very reclusive person in my personal life. I know on the videos here, and if you see me speaking publicly or whatever, I'm very outgoing and engaging and I've been told I connect well with the audience too. And that's my professional life. But my personal life, I'm very reclusive. And I do have a romantic relationship um, with my wife, obviously. And it's not really changed much, but like I said in this little paragraph I just shared with you here, it has allowed me to understand who I am and help me identify my needs. And I'm sharing them with my wife, and I love her very much, and I truly appreciate this. She totally gets it, and she's extremely supportive. So I feel very blessed in having her in my life. But let's be honest. Unmasking, which is what you'll be doing when you know what your needs are and you're sharing it with other people. Unmasking can be hard. Okay, let's be honest, can be difficult. When you spend in a lifetime, it can be hard because when you spend a lifetime trying to blend in, suddenly showing up as your authentic self can feel scary, but it's also freeing. The people who truly care about you, well, they want to know the real you. So by unmasking, you may lose or probably will lose some friendships, some relationships, some connections, okay? Or they will be altered and they will just be strained. And I know that's scary. I know that's frightening. Okay, I get it. That scares me a little bit too. Even though I don't have a lot of friends, it does scare me a little bit. But it weeds out the posers. You're going to have people, the ones that stay with you, are really your true friends and your true romantic relationships and all. And the people who don't get you, I don't know you, I don't know them that well, but you may be better off without them in your life. Now, as you progress through a late diagnosis of self identifying as autistic, you may start redefining your life goals and your future aspirations. Because now you're looking at your life through a new lens. You notice you're autistic, you review back in your life and say, okay, this makes sense. And you see these patterns, you say, maybe I need to make some changes in my life going forward. Now that I self-identify that I'm on the spectrum or I received a late diagnosis. And this is an important part of your life because one of the biggest shifts after a late diagnosis or when you start self-identifying as autistic is realizing you're allowed to prioritize what works for you. Maybe that means you need to make a career change, finding work that fits your needs rather than forcing yourself into an environment that drains you. And this is true not only for work, it could be, you know, uh, you may just realize I like music. I love listening to music, and I like being with people, but crowds is just too much for me. So I need to get together people who I'm close to, and like one thing I discovered, crowds do bother me. So when my wife and I like to go out, we don't go out during the crowded hours at our restaurant. We'll go out late afternoon, between lunch and dinner when it's not so crowded. And we still get to enjoy that, but we're now making that shift in my life, in our lives, to better accommodate what I know my needs are as an autistic adult. So the most important thing that you need to know that it is okay to prioritize yourself. Many of us on the spectrum, and myself included, are fawners. That means we're people pleasers. We want to people please because we know we either suspect or we know we're different, to blend in and to be accepted by our neurotypical peers. We do things to try to please them, make them happy, so we are accepted by them, so we don't feel isolated and lonely. But it's okay to prioritize yourself, especially when you self identify or have received a late diagnosis of autism. Because this may mean giving yourself permission. Prioritizing yourself means giving yourself permission to embrace passions and interests you once ignored because they didn't, quote, fit in what was expected. And for example, I I have a lot of buses. I love buses, for many reasons. But I love buses. I love city buses and all because the design, the shapes, you get like 10 of them at a transit center, they're all the same size, the uniform. I love that. And I love the fact they have schedules and routes, and so everything's planned out. I love those things. Now, I kind of shy away from that because if you were in my office, you would see a bunch of buses around me. You might even well, it's blurred. That's right, it is blurred. But behind me, when this is not blurred, you can see a in a box a one of those big metro buses from like New York that has a I call it the accordion bus where they have that little black thing in the center where it kind of turns weird. It's cool looking. Okay, but I kind of hide that from people because I have all these toys in here and I got stuffed animals too. And I think that's not really appropriate for someone my age. But now that, you know, I self identify and I am late diagnosis, I don't care who knows. Okay. It's who I am. And if you don't like me because of that, well, you know what? That thinned the herd where I really have people around me who accept me for who I am because your diagnosis or self-identifying as autistic doesn't limit you. This is very important. Your self-identifying as autistic or your late diagnosis of autism doesn't limit you. In fact, it helps you discover what truly fulfills you. So explore those things. Explore, like I explored and learned more about buses. I like watching videos of buses. I stuffed animals everywhere. If you have a passion about trains, start exploring that. It's okay. It's part of who you are. Now, let's talk about some of the challenges of self identifying as autistic or of a late diagnosis and how you can navigate them. So let's get into the hard stuff here. A late diagnosis or self identifying as autistic can bring up imposter syndrome. This imposter syndrome is when you say to yourself, am I autistic enough? You might even face skepticism from others who say, but you always uh, it seemed fine. You always seem fine. You always seem great. I don't see, you can't be autistic. You will hear those things from people, but you don't have to. You got to remember this. This you got to remember, okay? You don't have to prove your autism to anyone. Well, maybe, when you get assessed, but otherwise, you don't have to prove that you are autistic to anyone. Navigating navigating being autistic means finding the right support. Navigating life means finding the right support. Whether that's an online community, therapy, or just connecting with other autistic adults who get it, you are not alone in this. So you don't have to prove to anyone that you're autistic, okay? And if people don't want to believe you or in denial, some of them that may take some time to accept it because you tell them that you're on the spectrum or whatever, and they have to accept the change in who you are, and that can change the dynamic some. Some may never accept it. And those that don't, you're better off without them being in your life, okay? I'm not telling you to end a relationship or anything, but I'm just saying you may evaluate it and realize you don't need those people in your life, okay? So here's the takeaway from this video. A late diagnosis or self-identifying as autistic isn't a limitation. I mentioned that earlier, but it's important enough that I reiterate it now. In fact, self-identifying as autistic or receiving a late diagnosis of autism is a key, a very important key. It is a key to understanding yourself, to shredding old self-doubt, and to finally embracing unapologetically who you are authentically. You've always been autistic. Since you're a child, you don't become autistic as an adult. You've been autistic your entire life. You're not just finding out about it. So you've always been autistic. Now you get to live with that knowledge and use it to build a life that truly fits you. And that, my friend, is powerful. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment in the comments below this video. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing with, share in the comments, including when did you first start suspecting you were autistic, and how has the realization that you're autistic, whether because you self-identify or you received a late diagnosis, changed your life? I would love to read your comments. Until next time, this is the Confident Autistic, aka Chris Mitchell, reminding you that I'm always here to help you live life confidently autistic.